Hello there everyone and welcome back to the Common Sense Guys channel. How are you all doing today? I'm sure you've seen by the title of the video, what the hell is going on with Mr. Cummings? Why is everybody so pissed off? Well, what the hell is actually going on? Well, what are the facts? What's going on? Why are people so up in arms or in staunch defence? Why are we polarising? Why are we doing this at the minute? What is going on with Mr. Cummings and why is he such a divisive figure? So I'm going to do this video in two parts. First of all, I'm going to go through the facts of what actually happened, or at least the facts of how they have been reported, as Mr. Cummings hasn't been forthright on everything that has happened as well. But we will go through with the facts that have actually been here, because even by the facts that have been reported by the media, it's a very interesting take that some people have partaken on this. So we're going to take that as our first part of the video. Second part of the video, I'm going to give my opinions on what people are saying about this and my opinions of the situation as well. Now, if you want to just skip the facts part of this video, then please do. I will leave a timestamp up here for you to click onto so that you can go and actually watch my opinions, because apparently that's all that matters. Because that's why you're here, right? To hear me shout and scream about what's going on in the world and the hypocritical double standards of calling a man out for travelling for a certain amount of times and then having literally thousands of people on London Bridge clapping for the NHS every fucking Thursday. But hey, let's get into the video, shall we? Right then everybody, welcome back. So we're going to go through the actual facts of the situation, if you will. So Dominic Cummings has gone on a lockdown trip, and what do we know? This was brought out yesterday, the 23rd of May. It's now the 24th of May. So I've waited a couple of days because I know that this story also come out on the 22nd. And as I said, I will do the facts first, and then I will play through what my opinions are of these and these situations overall. So let's move down. So we move down to apparently what happened. So what happened was on the 27th of March, so almost a month ago, Downing Street confirmed that Boris Johnson and Health Secretary Matt Hancock had tested positive for coronavirus. Now remember, Dominic Cummings at this point is also a very trusted he's a very trusted advisor to the government, isn't he? So he's going to be very close to Boris Johnson. He's going to be very close to all the cabinet ministers and anybody that has chance of getting the coronavirus if these people have already had it, which, as they said, Boris Johnson and Health Secretary did have it and were tested positive for it. So there is a strong, very strong likelihood that Mr. Cummings would have come into contact with these people, even for the briefest of sentences or sections. So, on the 30th of March, Downing Street confirmed the top advisor was self-isolating at home after developing symptoms. So, Mr. Cummings, along with his wife, Mary Wakefild Cummings, because they have a double-barreled name. Interesting that they decided to drop off the double-barreled name, isn't it, at that point? But, carrying on. And their child drove 260 miles from his home in London to County Durham to isolate, although the date of the trip is not clear. So let's read that again, shall we? Mr. Cummings, along with his wife, drove 260 miles from his home in London to County Durham to isolate. So just remember that. However, Durham Constabulary said it was made aware on the 31st of March that an individual had travelled from London to Durham and was present at an address in the city. Interesting. So between the 30th of March, as he was seen at London, and the 31st of March, when somebody reported on him going up there. And apparently on April 14th, Mr. Cummings was seen returning to Downing Street for the first time since isolating. So, drove up there in March, and on the 14th of April, he drove back. Those are the two instances which he apparently broke, let's say, the advisement to stay where you are. So let's have a look at what the rules are supposed to be, shall we? So what were the lockdown rules? At the time of Mr. Cummings' trip, the whole of the UK was in the stay-at-home part of the lockdown. This meant you were only allowed to leave the house to, these are very important, shop for basic necessities, namely food and medicine, carry out one form of exercise a day along with members of your household, or on your own, address a medical need. Interesting. We'll stick with that one and we'll come back to that in the opinion section, won't we? We'll come back to that. Travel for work purposes. Interesting. We'll leave that one for when he come back for the second trip, shall we? The April 14th trip. Travel for work purposes. Interesting. We'll come back to that in the opinion piece. Again, obviously. However, the government advice said if you had symptoms, you had to stay isolated in your home for 7 days from when the symptoms began, with any other members of the household having to isolate for 14 days in case they had contracted the virus. You were not allowed to see family or friends from other households if you had symptoms, and also told not to travel anywhere. Interesting. Keep that in your peace of mind, that you weren't allowed to see your family or friends from other households if you had symptoms, and also told not to travel anywhere unless you had medical need to. We'll get back to that. So, let's have a look now at what Cummings and his wife have apparently said in response to this. The only comments Mr. Cummings has made since the story come out were to report outside his London address. In other words, after he come back to work back with the government after April 14th, after realising that he is no longer ill. He said he had behaved reasonably and legally, and when asked whether it looked good, he said, "Who cares about what looks good?" Now, I have my opinions about this, and I think this is the reasons why a lot of people are going against him and some are going for him. But again, that will come back to the point of my opinions. Again, if you want to watch that, it won't be long, we'll get into it. Miss Wakefild Cummings, commissioning editor at The Spectre, wrote an article for the magazine during the pair's isolation, remembering that this was to do between March 30th and April 14th, that she wrote this article piece and was able to do this beforehand. So this article piece has come out since, or before should I say, the 25th of April. And it's very interesting because before the 25th of April, nobody gave a crap about this. This is almost a month later that they've held on to it. It's amazing to me that you have the information that has been given to them by their own people of saying how it looks and how it doesn't look, and interviews that have even been produced by it, but yet it's taken this long to be addressed, if you need to address it. Again, opinions coming up very soon. Let's carry on. So, Miss Wakefild Cummings said that she felt breathless, sometimes achy, but her husband had collapsed and couldn't get out of bed. So put this into perspective. Before both of them were very, very ill, they were to travel to be near, but not in the same household, as their mum, dad, but more importantly, their sister and nieces, which is the person who had more contact with them, as in she went out and actually bought the shopping and left it outside for the mother, Miss Wakefield Cummings, to actually sort things out with them and whatnot. But it's interesting, isn't it? This doesn't seem to be produced or talked about, that both were so ill that both of them were too busy looking after either each other or not being able to move. But interesting. Apparently Cummings is a bad person for doing this. Again, opinions to come very shortly. So she wrote, day in, day out, for 10 days, he lay doggo with a high fever and spasms that made his muscles lump and twitch in his legs. He could breathe, but only in limited, shallow way. Miss Wakefield Cummings also spoke to BBC Radio's 4 on the 25th of April about the couple's experience. Remember, a month before all of this come out. Interesting, isn't it, that it's taken a month for people to grab hold of this news, so people are not knowing what's actually gone on, and people have forgotten that these people were actually very ill with a child. But hey, let's carry on. So, now moving on to coronavirus, Dominic Cummings rejects calls to quit as PM's chief advisor. The reason why I've now moved on to a separate article is because even in the same day, they changed their story. They've separated what Dominic Cummings has actually said and gave his reasonings for it, separate to what has actually happened. Now, to me, it's interesting that they couldn't have updated the previous story. It's very interesting, or they couldn't have updated this story to say what was going on and whatnot. But let's carry on and find out what Dominic Cummings actually has to say about what's gone on. So he says that he did the right thing by travelling 260 miles with his family to be near relatives when his wife developed COVID-19 symptoms. Before this, he wasn't actually sure if he actually had symptoms himself, which is why he drove his wife and his child up near to where his relatives actually are in County Durham. Downing Street said he wanted to ensure he had childcare if he got symptoms. In other words, not sure if childcare would be able to come and pick up his children or to look after his children if both him and his wife were actually ill. Because if him and his wife were actually ill, who would actually be able to look after his children? Because by extension, what childcare facility would take a child that has two parents confirmed with coronavirus? Ask yourself that, please, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we will get into the opinions very shortly. So, Labour and SNP have flouted the government's own advice and are calling for an urgent inquiry into his conduct. Interesting. It comes after the government announced 282 more people had died with the coronavirus since Friday across all settings, bringing the total to 36,675. So speaking at the daily coronavirus briefing, Mr. Sharps said Mr. Cummings went to Durham because that's where his family was. As we all do in moments of crisis, we always seek to have our family, those who can assist us, around us, and I think that's all that has happened in this case. Now, it does go on further to say very later that he actually was not in the same house as his mum and dad. He wasn't in the same house as his sister, even though his sister was the one who was coming over to do shopping for them and left things outside. But we will get to that. And that's what's the most important thing here. People are saying that he went up there to lully it up with his family, to spend time with his mum and dad, and so on and so forth. When in actual fact, that's the furthest thing from the truth that could ever have been ascertained. You could even argue from a, let's say, a strict point of view here, or a heartless point of view, that he simply went up there so he had childcare for his children, where he was incapacitated for 10 days with shallow breath and muscle spasms that kept him in bed completely for 10 days, while his already ill wife and partner was still looking after him while still being ill herself. But you know, let's all be outraged at Mr. Cummings for some strange reasons. Again, I will get into my actual proper opinions of this very shortly, though I do know and do see that they are starting to slip in a little bit. So, he said, did not know the personal circumstances that Sharps of the Cummings family that prevented them seeking help closer to home. Well, we know, and that is because that Mr. Cummings and his wife and partner were both ill due to COVID-19. But before Cummings was actually completely and utterly taken aghast or taken ill via COVID-19, he was able to travel to be with family. Now, that doesn't mean that he spent time with the family. It means that he knew that if there was a problem with looking after his child, or vice versa, his wife at this point, they would actually be able to have his sister, for instance, look after the child for them, or at least check up on the child. But hey, personal circumstances. What daycare centre would actually take on a child, that definitely was confirmed with having two parents confirmed with COVID-19, and children possibly being a carrier for the disease? Interesting that they were people that are against this, against Cummings, don't actually take that into account, do they? But hey, we'll get into that very, very shortly, won't we? Very shortly. Quizzed about how this fitted the government's guidance, which is to say at home, he said, the important thing is that everyone remains in the same place whilst they are on lockdown. He added, the guidance says that if you are living with children, keep following this advice to the best of your ability. However, we are aware that not all these measures will be possible depending on, therefore, on circumstances. Very interesting that how on the first section we were having a look at the two exceptions that seem to be what you could put down to what Cummings has done on this. Again, we'll get into opinions very shortly. And, as you can tell, it might be a bit interesting for you. So, he said it was for an individual to make the decisions on how best to practice lockdown measures. Interesting, isn't it? Especially when it comes to medical guidances. Or in other words, trying to find out the best way to have your child looked after, or to know that they have childcare if the worst or portions of the worst may happen to the child, as in the parents can no longer look after the child. But let's carry on. So obviously you have Labour and the SNP have both written to the UK's most senior civil servant, Sir Mark Sadwell, to call for an urgent inquiry into Cummings' conduct. Labour's Rachel Reeves said the British people do not expect there to be one rule for them and another rule for the Prime Minister's most senior advisor. You mean trying to find some way of looking after their child when both parents are ill? Yeah. The caring party that is the Labour and the SNP. Very caring. Let's carry on, shall we? Labour have stopped short of calling for Mr Cummings' resignation, but it says Downing Street's explanation for his behaviour raised more questions than they answer, including when the PM was made aware of his aide's decision to travel from London to Durham during a lockdown. Downing Street earlier put out a statement on Mr Cummings' actions, and it says, owing to his wife being infected with suspected coronavirus and the high likelihood that he himself would become unwell, it was essential for Dominic Cummings to ensure his young child could be properly cared for. His sister and nieces had volunteered to help, so he went to a house near to but separate from his extended family in case their help was needed. His sister shopped for the family and left everything outside. At no stage was he or his family spoken to by the police about this matter, as is being reported. His actions were in line with the coronavirus guidelines. I will read that again so people can understand why my opinions will be what they are very shortly. So, owing to his wife being infected with suspected coronavirus and the high likelihood that he himself would become unwell due to the fact of Boris Johnson and the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, being confirmed and tested for the virus and it being pertinent that they had it, to the detriment of how we know how Boris Johnson spent his time with having the coronavirus, as being in hospital, as coming close to being put on ventilators, and so on and so forth. So there was a very high likelihood that somebody with a modicum of intelligence would think that he has a very high chance of becoming infected, to do with his proximity of being near and within rooms with Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock and others of ilk that were also confirmed to have the virus. Remembering that the day after it was confirmed, the 31st, is probably the time in which he did the travelling to London, to Durham, from London. Knowing that he was going to be ill, knowing that his wife was already ill, to make sure that his child had a modicum of child supervision, why both of them were likely to be incapacitated due to their illness, or perceived illnesses coming. Seems like that would almost be under the idea of a medical need or a social need, making sure that his children are looked after, knowing that both of them have become ill. But hey, let's carry on from that, shall we? His sisters and nieces had volunteered to help, so he went to a house near to but separate from. Again, very, very important. This comes to a point of where he is actually saying, and the government has confirmed, and so has his family, that he didn't actually go to a house with his family. So people that are saying that Dominic Cummings went up to spend time with his family and being in the same house and having a chance of mixing up with his 70-year-old and over parents are now falsely claiming that. He did not. He did not even spend time in that house according to the government, or even in a house near to them in accordance. But hey, I suppose narrative matters more than the facts, I suppose. But carrying on. His sister shopped for the family and left everything outside. At no stage was he or his family spoken to by the police on this matter. So at no stage did the police think that he did anything wrong, under the guidelines and under the guidance given. Remember, guidance, not law. By any stretch of the imagination, Mr. Cummings has broken no law. You could argue that maybe he broke the guidance that was given by the government, and sure, you have a case for that. But also, there are circumstances in which the government themselves have given credence for you to be able to break these guidances anyway, which is due to medical and social needs. In other words, making sure your child is goddamn cared for. And at this point, I'm going to now go into my opinions on the matter, even though I kind of already have. But now let's do it officially, shall we? Right, so you've been able to make it through the facts of the situation. Sorry I let my opinions kind of slip in on that one, but it's kind of an emotive reaction and it's kind of an emotive story, I believe, on this occasion. Which is a lot of people that seem to criticise Mr. Cummings on this, that don't have any sort of political allegiances, should we say, or underpinnings, if you want to put that kind of a word to it, normally stem from the fact of, oh, he went to see his family. I haven't seen my family for this length of time and blah, blah, blah. I am in those section. I haven't seen my 70-plus-year-old father for, I don't know, around about 5-6 weeks along those lines. I haven't seen my mum as well for the same period of time because obviously they live together. But I understand why Dominic Cummings has done this. I don't understand it where people are saying that, mischaracterising it, of saying that, oh, he's gone to see his family. No, he didn't. He didn't go to see his family. Yes, he went up to be near his family, but it wasn't a excursion. It wasn't a holiday. It was for medical purposes. It was for social purposes. It was to make sure that his child, if both of them were to get so bad in their symptoms, which he was actually correct on doing this because of how bad that his wife actually told you, which I'll link down in the description box of the article that she actually writes, about how bad he actually was, where he and her were quite bad. Both of them had their debilitating days when they couldn't even move, especially between those 10-period days. That means 10 days of them not being able to look after their child, which was the whole point of the excursion, so to speak, or the medical need to move to that point. And remember, they didn't actually spend any time in the house that was connected or, in essence, very near to their parents. So they weren't passing anything on to their parents. They weren't even passing anything on to their sister, which is the main reason why they went up there for, which was for their healthcare, for their childcare. To the point where they were actually having shopping being brought in via the sister, left outside, so the mother, the parent, could collect that and obviously, sort things out individually between the two of them, transfer money over and so on and so forth. But here comes to the crux of the position, doesn't it? It seems very interesting that they've waited a month to jump onto this exercise, doesn't it? It seems interesting that they knew about this from around about the 24th to 25th of April when the wife was actually going around doing interviews on their actual circumstances and experience of having the virus together and what they had to do to battle it. It's interesting that it wasn't particularly called out by politicians at that point, was it? Seems interesting that now it's being used as a political football. It's being used as a political tool to now try and single in and try to let's say deflammatize, I suppose. But he's already in that sort of category. He's already a divisive figure. People already either love him or loathe him or, just don't even care about him. I'm kind of in the middle of that. I really don't care either way about Dominic Cummings. I'm happy for what he may or may not have done for Brexit. I also think that he's an arrogant prick. But at the same time, I still understand why he's done this. And I think anybody with a modicum of common sense would actually understand it. That he didn't go there to see his parents. I know I'm reiterating this, but I really need to. But he didn't go there to see his parents. He didn't go there to see his sister. In actual fact, they didn't see each other, apart from when she was dropping off stuff from outside for shopping, according to the government and according to them. So, in essence, he did the right thing. He knew that he was going to be ill because people that he was working with had been confirmed with having it while he was working with them. So he knew he was going to get it. His wife already had and was showing signs and symptoms of it. So they wanted to be near people that they knew that could look after their child. Now, I hear people in the background. I can hear you say, why didn't he go to a care facility? Why didn't he get childcare for it? Ask yourself a question. A serious question on this one. Do you think that any childcare facility or person knowingly would accept a child that has two parents in the same household while they were together and would be going back to that household every night, would accept a child that has those two parents with confirmed coronavirus 19 on? Do you think that they would accept that? Do you think that he would actually be able to get childcare for those at least 10 days of Dominic Cummings being flat on his back, muscles twitching and shallow breath? Do you think that the child would actually get healthcare, childcare at that point via a professional in London? Do you think? Do you? Honest question. I have my views on this, but let me know what you think down below in the description box and the comment section. Let me know. Do you think that he would actually have got childcare knowingly why he and his wife both had COVID-19 in this pandemic with the way that the media has portrayed the virus? Do you honestly think that? Now let me know. Please let me know. I'm very interested in that one. So, now we move on to the double standards. Dominic Cummings should now be completely and utterly chucked out of government or the government advisor role because he flouted the rules and so on and so forth. Even though that you could quite easily make a case for and against. I'm not saying that it's a clear cut, yeah, he definitely should be or he shouldn't be. I'm not saying that. There is definitely argumentations for both sides of this. But put this into perspective, please. I know it's Dominic Cummings and I know there's a lot of emotion that comes from Dominic Cummings. Just from his name alone, there's a lot of emotion that comes from it. But take it away. A father with his wife knowing that she already had symptoms. Him knowing that his work colleagues have already been confirmed with having the virus. Knowing that he's most likely going to be out of it for a good couple of days at least, if not almost 2 weeks. Knowing that his wife is going to be similar or almost as incapacitated. How is he going to get his child to a care centre or to have somebody come pick his child up for those foreseeable days where he's going to be incapacitated due to having the virus? How is he going to explain all of that? So he decides on the sensible thing, in my opinion, to before he has and she has massive amounts of symptoms, to pack everybody up into a car, keep the windows locked up and whatnot, drive up to Durham, not into a house with his family, but near his family, so that if anything does happen, they have childcare, sister, that would be able to look after his child and, separate and make sure that things are okay and whatnot. What would you do in that situation? Seriously, what would you do in that situation? Would you do something similar to what Dominic Cummings has done? Would you do something that the father would do, that the mother would have done? Or would you just take your chances and see if you can get childcare for those 14 days? Because that's what this is all boils down to, doesn't it? It boils down to what would you do in that situation? Taking it from that point of view, and the fact that it wasn't an actual excursion to go and see his family or spend time with his family, it was actually, in this case, and I do think in this case, generally to have childcare for his child. I do actually honestly think that, and it does seem to be in line with the guidances given by this government. Though again, we can get into the hypocritical states of those advices very shortly, and we will do. But that's the point, right? Let's now move on to the NHS clap for Thursdays, every Thursdays. By the way, people, before you start dogging on me, I have no actual issue with people coming out onto their sides, onto their streets, and clapping away for the NHS. I think that the NHS staff deserve it, and I think that if you want to go and do that, then good for you, and I think you're amazing for doing it, and it shows amazing support. That being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, and however, it comes to a point where you have police, hundreds and hundreds of police, medical services, and so on and so forth, every Thursday, stopping on London Bridge, clapping away with almost hundreds and hundreds of people like this, every Thursday, clapping away and spending time on London Bridge, and nobody calls them out. Nobody calls Clarissa Dick out for saying that she should never organise her police force, the Metropolitan Police Force, for doing that. For an instance, how many crimes are going on at that point where the police could be patrolling and stopping them? But no, they're actually on the bridge trying to virtue signal about how they're clapping for the NHS, which is fine, I understand that, but think of how hypocritical that is. You're going to tell people, in one instance, that they can't leave their gardens, and I'll show you that you can't leave your gardens. You can't
stay indoors because of COVID-19.
So you're saying I'm not allowed on my front garden?
You cannot come on your front garden.
Did everyone hear that?
Yes.
Not allowed.
I'm recording.
Can you step back a little bit, please?
Come on your front garden.
Can I just say something though? When
No, leave it. No, she says we're not allowed on the garden.
Front garden. She didn't say anything to us.
Well, I can't speak for anybody else, right? But this is a reason. You know, when you look around and there's nobody out, it's because
you can't expect me.
There's not no one out. Go down the street. They're all over the place.
It's not me. It's the government.
You're not allowed on your front gardens, people.
You do not
go and spend time near your family to make sure that your child is perfectly healthy and safe while you're self-isolating yourself. But apparently it's okay for people to do this on the bridge every Thursday, to be able to praise the NHS when they are nothing to do with the NHS, and possibly making more and more people infected every time that they do that. But apparently that's not hypocritical, doing the London Bridge thing, and that's not good enough to call for Clarissa Dick to resign, or anybody else that supports that to resign, or even participates in that to resign. But Dominic Cummings for making sure that his child has a form of childcare and being sensible about it, not moving up to be in the same household as his parents, not to be in the same household as his sister, but to be near his sister, to be near his parents, so in case anything happens, his child has childcare. That's enough to apparently get rid of Dominic Cummings. Now, regardless of how you personally feel about Dominic Cummings, when you hear people portray it as, oh, he went up to spend time with his family, you can use this video as a reference and say, no, he didn't. He didn't want to spend time with his family. He wanted to be near his family, which is why he didn't actually even go near his family by his sister dropping food off while they were both so incapacitated that Dominic Cummings was laying on his back like a doggo, breathing so shallowly that his wife was worried and was twitching because of how bad his legs are and everything else like that. Again, I will link to it down in the description, the actual article for Dominic Cummings' wife writing that up in the Spectre. It is behind a paywall, which is why I can't actually sort it out. But if you want to go and do that, it's down below in the description box if you want to go and read it. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's literally what's happened with Dominic Cummings. That's the whole story. He knew that he was going to get ill because of situations that happened with Boris Johnson and everybody else in the cabinet. He knew that his wife was already showing symptoms of it. So before anything got too bad, he decided that he was going to travel to be near his family to make sure that when the inedible happened and both parents, as they admit, got so bad that they couldn't look after their child, actually knew that they had family where the child could go and spend time with, or could go and meet up with, or, you know, be looked after. But apparently, that's a sackable offence now. That's a position where people should now lose their jobs over. That if you know that you are going to be so incapacitated and know that you can't get childcare, that you're going to lose your job over. Is that really the country that we want to have? That if you can't find childcare, you're going to be penalised because of it regardless anyway, because you didn't have time to look after your child. Or even when you do find ways of looking after your child and knowing that they're definitely going to be looked after and not taking a risk on if a entity is going to take your child on for a facility or for a person to come over and look after your child, you actually have family members that can do that. That's enough to apparently sack you from a position now. Step back from it being Dominic Cumming. Step back, look at it from a father's point of view, look at it from a family perspective, look at the actual fact of what he did, not who he was when he did what he did. And you'll see that this is absolutely absurd, especially with all the hypocrisy that people are producing at the minute. But hey, thank you very much for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know in the actual box down below, in the comment section, what you think about this. Do you think that I'm ravingly mad at this point in time? Do you think I'm a Cummings defender? Or do you think that there's an actual point to this and you actually agree with me in principle, regardless of if it's Dominic Cummings or not? Let me know. So if you like this video, please do like the video, please share, please subscribe, all of that good stuff. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I will see you all again real soon. Bye-bye for now. Take care.